I
That's
like the
cool.
little 7 singles. I haven't seen those in a very long time.
Mm. I think this is Amina's hard work.
Okay.
Yes, no, she's got good taste.
Yeah, it's
Um,
good taste. Yeah.
Jonathan, there's one thing I need to get out of the way before we even start, because
Right.
my dad is going to watch this, right? And if I do not say that he is such a big fan of yours, he absolutely adores your music. I was raised on your music.
Oh,
So
wow.
I need to mention that.
Oh, what's your father's name?
William.
Tell him if William, if you're watching, you have a very nice daughter, and she's very cool. Talks about you, and I appreciate that you are a supporter of Jonathan Butler music. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's going to be the world to him. So, Jonathan, I'm curious to know, what does the typical day in a music icon's life look like? Are you you wake up, you do yoga, do you roll over and you pick up the guitar? Like, what is a typical day in your life?
Oh, well, you caught me today because let me go back. So
Okay.
yesterday I had a kind of a very intense creative music meetings all day. So that's very draining. So by the end of the day, I would be exhausted from just emotionally trying to articulate my feelings about how I feel about my music and the stuff that I'm creating, especially this current album that I'm working on. So for me, waking up in the morning is, I'm sort of the guy that wants to lay in bed a long time, like a long time, until his body says, okay, you got to keep moving, you got to get up. So I would make a cup of coffee, but now that we have Postmates and you can DoorDash. So I will order my coffee from Starbucks. Of course, how lazy can you be? And I order my sandwich. And like I said, I love to get up and make myself a bagel with cream cheese and
yes, my favorite.
with smoked salmon and some tomato with salt and pepper, and have a coffee. And we have a big dog, so he's in the room sleeping with me and with us. And so when I wake up, it's usually just a nice coffee. And, I will sit actually at this table where I'm sitting right now, have my coffee, and contemplate whether I should go play golf or whether I constantly think about food. So Vietnamese food is my favorite breakfast as well, besides smoked salmon and bagel. So I would think.
What does that consist of? Vietnamese, what does that consist of?
Vietnamese pho, PHO, is like a broth with noodles and beautiful vegetables and stuff. And then I would get ready to go play golf. Sometimes I'll just prepare myself to get up, go out to the golf course and play 18 holes, come home. And sometimes while I'm on the golf course, I'll just enjoy the time out. It's like about, making myself take time out. I tell that sometimes to my daughters. I say, listen, you got to make time for yourself to just, when I'm home, I don't really want to do anything. I'm not a workaholic. I love music deeply. I'm deeply blessed, to have this, to have the gift. But at the same time, I'm not that guy that is constantly seeking a deal or is constantly clamoring and just I take things sort of in my stride. I never I like to play. My guitar's right here next to me. My piano's here. Our house is like a museum of just instruments. My wife teaches. So in the mornings, we usually just have coffee. She'll sit in the corner on the sofa on her phone, and that's my normal day. I don't dress up. I like to dress up, but it's usually, I love to go sit at my Vietnamese restaurant for lunch, and I'll just sit there quietly having another moment for just me, just for myself. And I'll look at my phone and learn some stuff on YouTube and get some recipes to come home and cook. And that's my day. Sometimes I'll go and shop, buy some shoes or, but it's like I need more shoes. I don't need any more shoes. But the mall is just there. The mall is like right there. So
temptation.
When I'm in Cape Town, it's the same thing. When I'm in the waterfront, I'm like, man, do I have to spend money and go buy something to wear again? But I love my days are just really. I'm very, very easy. I take it very, very easy. I've had a rough schedule this last month. I was in Iceland for 2 weeks on the cruise, jazz cruise. And then and then I came back to LA for 2 days and I had to fly back out to Germany and Paris to do another show. So when I come home, I just, watch Squid Games or something.
Did you watch season 3?
I'm supposed to start the 3rd season.
Oh, okay. I won't give you any spoilers, but
But that's my day. That's my day. Yeah.
Okay. And have you always had that kind of outlook? Because I feel like people, especially nowadays, they push this, work to the bone, hustle culture kind of narrative. So it's so refreshing to hear someone be like, actually, it's okay to breathe and to just make time for quiet time.
You know what? I tell you, if you just go outside and just take a deep breath, just take a deep breath and just feel the energy that is outside. That's why I like to go golfing, especially. And also when I'm in Cape Town, I live across the street from the golf course. But I wake up, I have a coffee, and I look at the mountains. I just stare at it, and I just have a moment of meditation, of just quietness and because listen, when we go out touring, my wife was just asking me this morning, like, what's this gig we're doing this weekend? And do you know anything about it? I said, no, all I know is that I'm playing a gig this weekend and it's an open air festival. But you know what it is? It's getting on the plane in the morning, getting ready the day before to get on the plane. It's it's stressful, it's really stressful. And you're sitting on a plane with people that's sneezing and coughing and farting, so it's like not my idea of fun at that moment. And so, but I cannot wait to see my band because that's my community. When we travel, that's the community I travel with, and we really have great times together. But when I come home, I really shut it all down. I really don't. Sometimes I don't even pick up the guitar. I like to take a drive in my car and listen to radio, just, something on CNN or MSNBC, and listen to what's happening in the world politically. I don't know. I have this thing for politics. I like to get to know what's happening in the world, but not to sort of throw myself 100%, but I like to know what's going on in the world politically.
And there is a lot going on in the US.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, a lot. Trust me, a lot. I've been here now probably half my life, and since COVID, I have personally experienced some incredibly crazy stuff here, and some that is really heart wrenching. The loss of George Floyd being, murdered on TV in front of the world to see, and then, of course, I had my own personal brushes with people who just racially try to sort of come and into my space and go back to your effing country so I've had some personal kind of stuff that I lived through when I was a kid in South Africa. So there's a lot going on, and that's why
And touching on that, so what is racism like? Because I'm in South Africa. I've only experienced, what that is here.
Yeah.
What is in America?
Well, it's obviously today it's even acutely more. It's more open. It seems like people have become a certain part of society has become emboldened to just
Mm,
say who they are. And exercise that racial energy. Into the atmosphere. So, but it's amazing. I think I'm a very optimistic person in spite of what I've experienced in South Africa and here. Here, it's unlike home. Home, we are a community. People are
of
a community. We are always connected to each other. In the US, there isn't that real connection with community unless um, come from a big family and you spend your time together. And I come from a big family. And so we've always just been around each other. My mother used to cook and people used to come eat and leave.
Yes,
And
that's what we do.
yeah, that's how we do, But here in Los Angeles, it's a little bit, it's different. It's not a sense of community. I mean, we have friends here, but it's not like we see them all the time. It's always a phone call rather than a personal
Mm, mm,
personal connection,
mm. I
So
hear you.
yeah, but racism, it it has never left the minds of those people that exercise it in their home.
Mhm.
Racism is taught at home. I mean, when you were a child, you would know anything about race. When I was a kid, and I was famous at the age of 13. Uh, um, and I was the first black artist or colored artist to win a Grammy Award in South Africa
Yes, 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 yes.
ever. I mean, I didn't know the political ramifications of what that actually meant in a country that would not allow blacks to live wherever they wanted to live or love whoever they wanted to love. So I think it's always been there, and now
Mm,
people just become emboldened to just to show that type of hatred and that dark energy that it comes with, and trust me, I've experienced that. So, but here in the U.S., I feel like my assignment has been pretty much, unite the world through my music, speak love and truth and unity through my music, and also connect South Africa with the U.S. Through music, through art. There's now been I've been here now for so many years, and I feel like uh, I've been embraced here musically. Our music is also being embraced, and so it's a beautiful thing. Yeah,
you're saying unity, and that's the name as well of your most recent album,
yeah.
Ubuntu, which is that's what it means.
Yes,
You
yes, yeah. Well, exactly. I and I believe in it strongly because I've had great men and women, to look up to when I was young. And I used to listen very closely to their conversations about, Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, all these amazing leaders, and Desmond Tutu. And so I was blessed to be among them and just to sit next to them and listen to them talking. And I feel like that's a responsibility that I need to pay forward, through music and coming back to why I think it's so important to spend time reflecting and spend time taking care of yourself and doing things for yourself. I now have grown children and grandchildren, so but I also feel like I need some,
yes, yes.
I like having them, but I like sending them back. Go
Yeah,
back.
it's a break.
Yeah, go back to your mother. But
Mm,
I've come to enjoy time alone. Let's put it that way. I've come to enjoy. You don't always have to be in the public eye. I mean, that's just unnecessary. That's people who feel the ego is larger than the gift. And sometimes I feel also, humility comes before the gift also. So I feel it's good to steal away and just make yourself be chill and calm. Do what you love to do. If you can, do what you love to do for yourself, Like this morning, I was telling my wife, I said, man, I kind of feel like I could have still laid in bed, and had more coffee and just chill out.
Why not?
But I'm in the day, as you can see. I'm in the day, and I'm about to take on what's in front of me. Yeah.
Okay. So you touched earlier on community, and I think in South Africa, our biggest sense of community is our braais, right?
Yeah.
Your aunties are in the kitchen,
Yeah.
someone's arguing, they're playing drums. That's
Yeah.
that's what we know.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have barbecue, like an American
Yeah.
barbecue,
Yeah.
but don't you ever miss like a liquor, some African curry, and
I
just
know.
out?
I hear you 100%. My wife was in the bedroom, and she's from St. Louis. So when we say braai, I mean, we're talking lamb chops and
Yes.
burgos
Yes.
and chakalaka
Yes.
and music, and like you said, everything you said, and a galley. We have a galley outside, a fire pit that's happening. So 4th of July is a big day here in the U.S. Guess what they fry? Hot dogs. They make hot dogs.
And burger cookies.
Yeah, it's hot dogs and burgers. I'm like, get out of here, man. Get out. So the first time I had a braai, a 4th of July braai, I invited all my friends. Everybody was here. And she was like, how much food? I mean, why are you buying so much food? I said, girl, this is a braai. This is what this is about. This is how we do it at home. There'll be half a sheep on that damn grill. Even if the grill is small, we would be, that's what we do, and I miss that. I miss that. So whenever I'm in Cape Town, trust me, I love having the young musicians over at my house. Cameron Ward, Aloe April, Nathan and Joshua and all these guys, Bryn. I have all these guys, young guys over at my house, and we braai and we play music. One night, I was having a braai at my house with all the guys, Monet, Charlton, everybody's at my house. And so we started, braaiing. After we finished the braai, we went into my garage and we started jamming in the garage, like 5, 6 guitar players. And so the security guy comes by and he says, hey, so Colin Durries goes out there to talk to guys. Hey, but 11 o'clock is the cutoff time here. And so we didn't know, we just kind of so apologize. So the next morning I called the estate, one of the guys, and I said, listen, I'd like to do a free concert for the community, So I did a free show at the community, in my community, just to shut them up.
Yeah, just to be like, hey.
This is all you guys that complained last night. Okay, this is it.
And they were there. I bet you they were there.
I'm here and I'm not leaving. And you guys, this is for free. So the neighbors came over after the show. They came to my house and they were just hanging out. And I thought, how cool is this that we, and South Africa is great because, even if you're an Afrikaner guy, if you're a colored guy, or black guy, whatever, braai is a common language.
Yes.
We have
it's like
Latvia,
there's a few things that unites all of us.
That few things that unites us, and that is braai, and a good curry is unbelievable. And I used to love stump millies and bunchies.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of that? You know about that?
Is it a tripe and drop?
No, it's stamping beans.
Stamping stoot. Get another name. Oh, yes,
I used to love that, but I don't get it here. Here in America, I usually go to a Mexican restaurant and get my something closer to that, but that's what I used to love. So, but all of those things unites us, and we have a lot in common in that way. Yeah.
And I think another thing that unites Africans is music. I think that's the most obvious one.
Absolutely. And not only that, the beauty of South Africa is something that we should all just thank God for the beautiful place that we come from. I mean, I was in Lesotho this year. I played a festival in Lesotho, and I couldn't believe how beautiful Lesotho was. I thought Table Mountain was amazing. You know, that's my favorite city in the whole wide world. But when I saw like Namibia, I went on this cruise this year with
Lovely.
Clarence Ford, and we got to Walfish Bay, and there we were, the dunes, and I was like, man, we come from such a beautiful country, you know, and that's why I feel like, you know, I feel like I'm the ambassador for South Africa here. I just tell people, listen, you've got to come and visit my country because you'll understand why we are so passionate and why we have so many stories that we can tell you, you know.
And don't you think there's still so many misconceptions about not even just South Africa, but Africa as a whole?
Oh yeah, well, I started this safari business like 13 years ago. I was approached to do a safari on a cruise, on a jazz cruise, and I said, sure, I would love to see my fans, take my fans to Cape Town and show them my country, you know, show them the city, and then take them to the bush. And 13 years later, we're still doing it. You know, we're going to be there in October. But some of the questions I had people ask me was interesting. It's like, is it safe? Is it safe there? And I thought to myself, you know what? What a dumb question. What a dumb question. They just shot 12 children in Colorado in a school.
Mm.
Or in Detroit, and you're gonna ask me if South
Is it
Africa,
safe? Yeah.
the kids still go to school in South Africa. You know, I mean, I just paused for a bit and I said, you know, everything is relative. You know, why don't you just get on the plane and come and see? I'll be your guest. I'll be your host. You'll see me every morning when you wake up. There I am, you know. And we stay at the Mountain Nelson Hotel, the most beautiful place to me. And so there is misconceptions, but I think it's changing rapidly because African culture and music is taking over the world. I mean,
Yes, 100%.
it's taking over the world, you know. I think it's just how the world is now, you know, through technology, through like me sitting here talking to you and Instagram, and you know, I think. It's changing because everybody I run into, like at different cities, they would always say, "Oh man, I've just been to your country, and it's amazing. It's so amazing." You know, and they always think I know everybody there. You know, it's like, well, I met a guy at the airport. You know, his name is Sipho Mehlamini. Do you know him?
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah, surely you know him.
yeah, I know him. Yeah, you know. So it's like, come on, man. I don't know everybody in South Africa. You know, so yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jonathan, let's rewind and let's go back to Athlone. You mentioned earlier as well to Bradley that that's where you grew up. And you also mentioned that, you know, you didn't realize when you won that Sari award that this is actually a very big deal. You know, you were colored.
Yeah, it was a very big deal. Let me see right here. Yeah, I still have the box. This is the box.
Okay.
This is the box that came in. I mean, the box is like torn apart, but this is the box that it came in. And I've had this for 50 years. I've had this little box for 50 years. And it really, I'm really so, you know, thankful for this little box here because and above there are the 3 gold records that I received when I was 13. And I didn't know I didn't know the power or the meaning of what that moment really was. I mean, as a child, my parents never spoke any political things at home. There was none that I could say, you know, had political views or expressed political views. So I learned that through my travels as a young kid and listening to grown people have discussions about the South African apartheid and the segregation that was happening. And also, you know, I was playing in cities such as Bloemfontein, Kimberley, you know, Durban, you name it, where the signs were all over the city. Coloreds only, blacks only, whites only. So I was playing in these venues where I couldn't use the bathrooms or I couldn't go to the restaurants because I would have to go to the back of the restaurant where there was a hole. There was a little hole in the back of the restaurant where the black people and the colored people could buy their food, and the double doors was for the white folks. They could go in,
So
places like.
perform. You were good
Yeah.
enough to perform, but not to actually just use the restroom.
I was not good enough to use the restroom. I remember many years ago, I ran, just this year, I ran into my old friend, David Kramer, and I played with David Kramer in his band. I was the first black guy in his band, during that apartheid era. And so the government and police hated us coming to town because, there were threats, I would get a lot of threats, as ik jullie weer zien in die hotellen, dan ga ik veel doodmaak. I had Afrikaner guys come and threaten me as a young guy. And so, but like I said, I had no idea that my career or these achievements had significance at the time, where I think it's also brought a level of hope. I know it brought hope to my family because it changed my family's life. I was now able to make, enough money for my mother to provide for 12 children, and not only 12 children, but also my nieces and nephews. They also lived in our shanty house where when my mother dished food, she would not just dish for us, but she would dish for them as well. So it was life-changing, it was a life-changing time for me. And I continue to pursue knowledge and understanding of what South Africa. There was a time that I was rather very bitter, about South Africa, and I then, when I discovered when I became a born-again Christian, I think my heart changed. Things shifted inside of me. My brain shifted. The more knowledge I acquired scripturally, it began to shape the way my heart felt and the way I felt about people. First of all, I knew I loved the country. The country there was nothing wrong with the country. Geographically, it was just the people,
Yes.
And the fact that even our people, even colored people, wouldn't be happy for each other. We would not be really happy for each other's own achievements. So we also needed to kind of get out of that mindset and start supporting each other, and start really appreciating each other's gifts and what we all can bring to the table. You know what I mean? Because it's enough that we were fighting against apartheid and racism and segregation, but fighting amongst each other, there was no benefit in that, There was just no benefit for me. So music was my way out. Music was really the way out for me,
And I know many artists, they express themselves and their struggles through their music. I mean, you've written your fair share of racial segregation as well as poverty struggles. Were you simply wanting to tell your truth, or did you want to educate people about what was going on in South Africa?
Well, it's bringing awareness. It's about, through my music, I was hoping to bring awareness. Like I remember when I wrote Heal Our Land. When I wrote that song, blacks were killing each other, colored people. There was so much violence and death in the country during the struggle that song was the police shootings and it was just like the craziest time, but it was the most. That was the time the country was really, revving up to change. And so I was at a church one day when I heard this song in my head, Heal Our Land, and I began to reach out to a friend of mine, Labi Shafri, who wrote the song, Something Inside So Strong. I called him up and we wrote this piece of music together, and it was banned on TV in South Africa. It was banned on radio. But it's about awareness. If you're an artist and you are not aware of your environment, the climate that you're living in, the social structure of your country or your culture, if you're not aware, you like a chef who feeds me a dish but cannot explain to me where it comes from. If you feed me a dish, tell me who taught you how to make it and tell me where it's from. that tells me a little bit more about you, So I wanted people to know more about me through my music. Seventh Avenue was the start. That was the start to me when I wrote that piece of music. It really showed like the song called Manenberg by Abdul Ibrahim, and I wrote Seventh Avenue, which is where I come from, the Cliftonton Road in Athlone, Belgravia. It said something about my identity. And I think that's what the legacy of our identity is something I try to push through my music and have people understand South African music and our language better. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's the only, because, we in South Africa, I hear a lot of covers, Tevin Campbell, Can We Talk? Everybody sings that song in South Africa. That's my favorite song,
Yeah, it is.
George Benson, and Al Jarreau, and I thought to myself as a young man, I always want to write my own music, because if these people can be successful with their own music, why can't we?
Why not me?
Why can't we be successful without? So, and that's when I began to change and shift my mindset. I mean, I fought with a lot of club owners in Cape Town when I was younger, because they wanted me to do covers, Bee Gees and all that stuff, and I didn't feel like I was a cover artist. I felt I was born to make my own statement. I think, and thank God to people like Stevie Wonder, who I love as a dear brother and friend, who inspired that in me. He inspired me to become my own songwriter, to become a songwriter, and so in that way I can tell my story as well,
And on your most recent album as well, you can hear Stevie, the harmonica on Superwoman.
Yeah.
Some of these. And I know you speak very highly of him. So how much did that mean to you?
Well, I gotta be honest with you. We recorded Ubuntu, the album, in Joburg for 3 days. We went into the studio and we tracked this album. And then when we got to Superwoman, Marcus Miller, who produced the album, said to me, "Hey, you should call Stevie and ask his blessing. Let him know that we did his song on the album." So I was like, "Oh man, do I have to call God? Do I have to call Jesus right now and make this call?" And this is a true story. And so I went. This is a true story. So I went to. I was on my way to go play golf, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
And while I'm on the golf cart, I said, "Okay, let me just text him." So I shoot him a text, and I didn't think anything about it. After the golf game, I went to go pick my grandchild up from high school. And as she gets into the car, the phone rings and it's Stevie on the phone. And so we didn't talk about Superwoman or anything. He just called me back and wanted to have a chat. And we talked for a while. And I said, "Hey, I want to play you something. I want to send you something. It's one of your songs. I recorded it in Johannesburg with Marcus Miller, So the next morning, around 7:30 a.m. in the morning, I get a voice message from Stevie, just raving about the song. He loved the way my wife played the violin, and he loved everything about it. And he said, "Listen, what can I do for you?" And I'm like, "Damn, what can you do for me? You can play harmonica on the song," but I didn't say anything. I just said, "Man, I can think of 1,000 things that I would love you to do." So he said, "Why don't you meet me at my studio tonight at 9 p.m. that night?" So I called Marcus Miller up and I said, "Hey, Stevie wants us to come out to his studio." And so we jumped in our cars and we got to the studio, and we had an amazing time with him. And he played. He got on the harmonica for like 20 minutes and it was done. And then I walked him back to the control room and we sat there till 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, man, all I could think of was, thank you, God, for giving me a seat at the table. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to sit at the table.
Because how many others can say that?
Well, it's a very deep thing. I mean, when you've loved somebody for so many years, like, I mean, every LP of his I have, and I studied, trust me, studied. And so I never, with my wildest dreams, imagined that I would like finally get to sit next to him and talk, And then one day he just FaceTimed me, he's on the FaceTime eating spaghetti in his kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, my hero is FaceTiming me and I'm in the chat.
Oh, it's a real moment.
Yeah. It was very, I can't explain it. Just can't explain it, I feel like that way about George Benson too. And people that I love, like Earl Clue, people that I've had, like I said, had the opportunity to sit at the table with them. And it's just, I'm just grateful, just really grateful,
And is it true that Earl Clue's was the one who kind of inspired you to transition from, the electric guitar to the nylon string guitar, which is obviously a beautiful signature sound of yours?
Absolutely. He was definitely, with George Benson, I fell in love with the fact that years a musician who actually sings and plays at the same time. So I had that love for George. And with Earl, I loved the fact that Earl played nylon string so beautifully and melodically that's exactly what I wanted to do with my, because I was playing bass in some bands and I was playing electric guitar. And during the late 70s, I started listening to Earl Clue and that was it. I had made up my mind. I'm going to play acoustic guitar. And, I love experimenting with the electric guitar because I in my band, I play electric guitar,
okay.
for some of the hit songs, but for the instrumental stuff, I usually always play my nylon string guitar. Yeah.
And you've mentioned before, because I saw this interview where you spoke about how it's so important as a musician to find your voice on the instrument you're playing. Yes. And I think that's something that we can all agree on that you've mastered, right? But how long did it take you to reach that level of artistry?
Oh my goodness. I talk a lot about in master classes about finding your voice, and oftentimes it's listening, it's listening plays such a huge role in you, because through listening, suddenly, the notes and the sounds begin to shape how you play and where you feel you most comfortable. Like, I mean, I've done pop music, I've done R&B music, I've done now world music, and I've done gospel music, and so there's really not a category that I like to put myself into, because as an artist, I feel like this, I almost like to say I like to be a musician more than an artist, because a musician can be it encompasses everything. Exactly. When you're an artist, you sort of, you're in a specific,
people see you as a gospel singer or an R&B singer.
Right.
Why box yourself? Why limit yourself in?
Why limit yourself to, and so finding your voice, like I said, means that you, like I said earlier, learning to write my own songs is where I started to get that feeling. Seventh Avenue was became my signature sound, basically, and then I several years ago, I did an album called Surrender. It had a song called Many Faces, and Many Faces.
I love that song.
Thank you. I wrote that in the Ivory Coast in Abidjan when I saw Black people I listened to Black people speaking French, and it just blew my mind that, and I couldn't think of anything to describe what I was feeling other than to write the song called Many Faces, that we have many faces. In this world, we have many faces, and we sound differently. And the only way I can make that sound is to it's explaining it to you. That's how much I love who we are and geographically where we are, and so finding your voice is taking the time to write and compose, sit down and write something, see what you can come up with, take out the George Bensons out of your mind, take out the Stevie Wonders out of your mind, and just find your voice, write something about you, how you feel, and see what happens,
And going back to, your earlier years, because I'm always curious to know, as a musician, as an artist, do you know that this one here is it? Because Lies, I mean, that was kind of your international breakthrough at the time.
Yeah.
Did you have a feeling like this one here is going to be the one, or did the reception of the song kind of take you by surprise?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because I want to answer it in two ways. First of all, I come from a family where ambition wasn't installed in us. We were gifted with talent, but ambition helps ignite the talent to it. When you have some ambition and you match it with the talent, you're sparking something. You know what I mean? It's like putting oil in your car, petrol in your car. You got a beautiful car, but you got no gas to go anywhere.
The car's just going to stand there.
It's not going to stand there. So I was signed to Jive Records in London, and I went there and began to do a lot of songwriting, co-writing, and they wanted to do an album with me. So they did an album, which is the first one was called Introducing Jonathan Butler, it had Seventh Avenue, Crossroads Revisited. It had Gentle Love. It had a lot of beautiful tunes on it. And that actually got a lot of traction on BET television and R&B radio, actually, on urban contemporary radio, adult contemporary. So the next album I started writing, co-writing with my co-partner, Jolyon Skinner. And the president of the companies, Clive Calder, Sledgehammer came out by Peter Gabriel. And Clive said, it'd be great if you write something like that, like big.
They wanted that sound?
Horns and big snare drum sound, and and so we wrote Lies, and it was kind of tongue in cheek. Like also it was like a tongue in cheek thing, you cheated on me with a white lie.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a fun vibe, and I didn't know. I did not know that was going to be, that was going to turn out to be a hit song. Because while I was living in London, I was doing sessions for Ruby Turner, Billy Ocean, Millie Jackson. I was doing a lot of session work, and I would always go home at night with the taxi and play my work in the taxi's car. And the taxi driver, one of them said to me, "Man, I look forward to seeing you on Top of the Pops one day." Top of the Pops, one of the big pop TV stations. They only play the hits. So I am, on Top of the Pops with Lies, and in the U.S. Lies it crossed over into the top 10 Billboard charts as well, and I got then approached by Whitney Houston's record to open for her, for 4 months. So I get this opportunity to open for Whitney Houston.
And how did you feel in that moment? Because it's Whitney Houston.
It was Whitney Houston, and she sounded like a bird every night. Her voice was, and it was kind of weird because, I'm this Cape Townian boy. I've been touring my whole life as a kid in South Africa. But now I'm touring, and this is my first international touring experience. And all I can see is, Whitney has several tour buses that look like hotels on wheels, and limos everywhere. And just me and my band in one tour bus, just me, and all my crew. And all of you guys. And it's amazing because every night one of her people would always come up to us and say, "Man, you guys sound amazing out there, man. The guys that's doing your sound, and Whitney had like several sound people everywhere, just and then one night I was wearing a pink shirt and a black pants, and I heard somebody calling my name. Where's Jonathan? Where's Jonathan? Where's Jonathan? And so next thing I know, it's Whitney, and she's wearing a pink shirt with the blue jeans.
Okay,
We have the photo. We have the photo here somewhere in the house. It's just a beautiful moment that
That's
I
the show.
backstage. Before I was going on stage, she like wished me well, on stage. It was her birthday. I had sent her flowers, But those days they made the if you were a supporting artist, they kind of separate your dressing room from the main artist.
Yeah. They need to make it known that look here, you're just supporting.
You're just supporting, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Stay humble. Stay humble. And after me, it was Kenny G. Then they opened for her, and then Kirk Whalum also worked with Whitney as well. So it was an incredible experience, and it was an incredible opportunity because after that tour, the album went platinum. I got nominated for 2 Grammys for that record. And it was the first time since Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder's double album, that a new artist actually, debuts with a double album. So that was my very. It was very. I remember sitting at the Grammys next to all of these, Prince and Stevie.
Wow.
And Michael Jackson was doing Man in the Mirror live in front of me. I'm sitting 4 rows from the stage and watching him sing Man in the Mirror with the choir, and I was just floored. I was like, I think it was surreal. I was too young to even understand what I remember my ex-manager calling me. I was living in London when all of this was happening, and he called me up one night and he said, "Hey, are you standing or sitting?" I said, "What's up?" He goes, "You are nominated for 2 Grammys." I said, "What is that?"
Oh, you didn't know?
No,
You didn't know?
what it was. I said, "What is that?" He said, "It's the Grammys." I said, "Oh man, I better check it out."
Yeah, I guess it's cool.
I had no idea. No idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I can honestly sit here all night and speak to you. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and chatting to me. I'm deeply humbled. Um, I think I don't speak on just behalf of South Africans, but myself as, a colored girly. I'm from Ceres, because of Plaskin.
Oh, yeah.
And
I trusted that.
oh, you've been to Ceres?
Yeah. I've been to
Okay.
Yeah. I've been
And thank you, for always coming back and having this willingness to share knowledge, because I think that's so important, And thank you for the work, the sacrifices that you've made over the years, and for choosing to share your God-given talent with all of us. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast today. Like I said, I've left home many years ago. I lived half my life away from home, but I never left. There's always been a piece of me. On top is a picture. Behind me is a picture of my mother's, the shanty house that I grew up in, that looked just like that. So I'm always reminding myself how much I miss home. I'll see Cape Town in October. I'll see Cape Town in November, and I'll be there in December. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jonathan.
You are welcome. Thank you too. Thanks very much. Thank you.